Hello, everyone. My name is Dilip Modi, the founder of Spice Money. We are a rural fintech business working to digitally and financially empower people across rural India. In our journey so far, we've managed to onboard nearly 1 million merchants in semi-urban and rural India on our Spice Money platform. And through these merchants, we deliver financial and digital services to millions of consumers in rural India. I have pleasure to introduce you today to a very dear associate, Vivek. Vivek runs a company called SpeedLabs. As we are working deep in rural India, we are realizing that there are lots of services that can be onboarded on the digital platform to fill up for the lack of access to essential services. One of the areas that there is a lack of access is to good education, and Vivek runs an amazing company in the name of SpeedLabs. And we've recently partnered with Vivek's firm to deliver education to our merchant families in rural India. So we'll talk more about that. But before that, I'd love for Vivek. Welcome on this fireside chat, Vivek. It's great to connect with your firm and to work with your team. Just for our viewers, let's start by perhaps you giving us a bit of background about yourself and about SpeedLabs.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, sir. It was a pleasure to associate with Spice Money, and congratulations to you and the entire team for taking this initiative. Pleasure to be on this chat with you. So, to give my own introduction, I belong to a small town in western UP near Mathura. That's where I grew up, and a typical middle class family from a small town did entire education in Hindi medium, UP board. But after that, went on to pursue my BTech at IIT Kanpur. Did completed in mechanical engineering. Then after that, a short stint as a teacher myself. I taught physics in Kota, and then went on to pursue my MBA from IIM Lucknow. And after that, worked in the financial services sector with Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, and ICICI Venture Private Equity Fund for about 11 years. And the last 6.5 years, I've been running SpeedLabs. And the vision of SpeedLabs is that personalized learning is the bridge between dreams and capabilities. And many of us have potential. I mean, if you especially look at in the rural area, there are so many bright students who have huge potential. There are two things. One is obviously the right guidance or the information that becomes a blocker. And the second thing is the personalized feedback, personalized learning, personalized analysis, all of these things. So some of these things are difficult to solve because they are directly dependent on infra. But with the help of technology and the internet, many other problems can be solved. And SpeedLabs is trying to solve the problem which can be solved with internet and technology. And we want to provide a personalized learning for everyone, a proper diagnosis, proper analysis, the study at a student level, and giving them the right feedback at the right time. So that's a quick summary about myself.
Thanks, Vivek. You've had an amazing journey for our viewers. It's amazing to see that, how your journey has brought you to where you are today. Running a very successful franchise. So Vivek, when the first time I heard about SpeedLabs, the discussion was around this personalized learnings, and this is something that comes out very strongly in your proposition, right? You've been a teacher yourself, so how would you say it works, right? Because personalized learning is something that everyone would like to see happen. But we see with classroom settings, with the kind of teacher-student ratio, a lot has gone online, right? And even within personal learning, ability to learn on your own versus learn with the help of a teacher. What's been your experience, and is there any difference you see between students in big cities versus students in villages, right? Maybe you can start from there, and then we can talk further.
No, definitely. I think this is one of the right questions to be asked in the education space, because personalized learning as a term is used for multiple things. Now, restricting myself to a K-12 segment, If we look at the journey of a student, there are three main components. One is the lecture component, which can take place in a school or a tuition or even YouTube or recorded lectures or an online class. Second component is self-study, which includes revision, practice, analysis, and recommendations for improvement. And third component is testing or assessment. Now, if we look at it, the personalized learning can take place in each of these three segments. However, the impact of personalized learning is highest in the middle stage. So self-learning, that is where if we can curate the learning journey of every student at his level, because everyone has a different level of understanding, different different knowledge level, different speed to process the data, and therefore the questions and the exercises that should take place for every student should be different. So if I give very difficult questions to an average student, I am not doing justice with his potential, because he will get demotivated, lose confidence, etc., etc. And at the same time, if I give easy questions to a very bright student, I'm wasting his time. So the algorithms in SpeedLabs product curate the learning journey for every student based on the data and previous responses of that student. And that's where our question recommendation engine provides the right sequence of questions, so that you or any student is learning on his or her proximal zone of learning, most highest level of motivation, right feedback on an ongoing basis. But if you look at the overall market, where personalized learning is also clubbed with the lecture, right? And lecture as a learning step just contributes about 1/3 or 1/4 of the learning. The majority of the learning happens in the self-study, whether it is math or science or any other subject, humanities, English. Unless a student is spending enough time on self-study, he can never deliver up to his potential. So SpeedLabs has focused on the middle part to a large extent. And personalized learning, when I say, it is not giving one-on-one online class, because online class has its own limitations, right? We have seen in COVID there was no option. It was a forced choice on us to go through online lectures. A much more beautifully recorded video lecture can do equally good job. The lecturing requires a lot more monitoring, lot more personal touch. It's a process. It's not a transaction that, okay, I gave you the lecture and it is done. It is a process where small steps like taking notes has to be monitored. In online classes, we did a survey, more than 80% students did not take proper notes. And that's the fact. And without notes, you cannot learn. There was no monitoring, no connect. So without going too much into detail at this step, what I would like to say, personalized learning can happen, and each of these three steps: lecture, self-study, and assessment. SpeedLabs is largely focused on the self-study and assessment side, and we think that is where people living in rural areas can take the maximum benefit of products like SpeedLabs.
So Vivek, when you talk about algorithms which curate these, learning specific learnings for individual students, how does it work? So, if I as a student sign up on your platform, right, you don't know anything about, where am I in terms of my level, right? Yeah. So how does then data get fed into your machine learning to be able to curate what works for me, right? So if you could walk through for our listeners as to how do your algorithms pick up on initial data of a student onboarding themselves for the first time on your platform?
So the first time, as you rightly said, there is no data on you. So initially the algorithm will start from a middle level in the range. So we have the database which tags every question to a particular learning velocity score. If a question has higher learning velocity, it is easier question because most of the people can learn it.
So you start the whole you start with assessment. Is that the first step?
No, not assessment. The algos are very dynamic. You will start with a few questions, and based on first 40-50 questions, the algorithm will start picking up your level in that particular chapter.
I sign up on your platform, the first thing I will be going through is a set of questions.
Correct.
Allow the system to determine my level of understanding.
Correct. And it is dynamic. Like if you can have a different level of understanding for a chapter. you can have a different level of understanding even for subjects. So some people are very good in, let's say, physics, but they are not so good in chemistry. So there is no guarantee that you are average across the subjects or across the chapters. So every chapter starts from a level, but of course, once we have some data about you, the algorithm knows that, okay, this is where we should start from. In addition to that, the platform also has recorded lectures, because in rural area, it is not always possible for every student to have an access to a right tutor. So we have the full-fledged self-learning platform, which has videos, which have explanations, which have examples. But more importantly, it has a USP, which is our product has an USP of personalized practice. So you can start solving a question. If you are not getting the right answer, the platform will show you a formula or a hint. It will encourage you to try again. After second attempt also, if you are not getting it, then it will show you a solution. And accordingly, the next question will come.
You mentioned about rural India, Vivek. Our partnerships are, of course, focused on rural India.
Yeah.
And, we've had a lot of, our merchant families benefit from your platform. Tell us what has been your experience in, use of the platform in rural India, just in terms of engagement levels, language issues. Uh, uh, you know, is there a difference between how much time a student is spending on your platform, sitting in a village, connectivity issues? So are there some nuances to, students in villages compared to students in cities?
Yes. Unfortunately, there is a disadvantage for students living in rural area, and it comes from three aspects. One, the first aspect is obviously the internet connectivity. The second aspect, which in my opinion plays a much bigger role, is the device. Because what we saw, many of your merchants' children were not able to access because they did not have the device. So they were dependent on their parents' mobile phone, which has a limited window for them to operate. And although in last 2 years many people have used the money which was saved from transportation or school, etc., and they have purchased the device, but I still think, based on the data that I got, that stands out problem number one in my opinion. So once that thing is solved in some way, then obviously the adoption was fine. I mean, we got a lot of positive testimonials, and children actually in a village of less than 1,000 population actually using it. The students and the parents both sent us many video testimonials. They liked it, and obviously this is still summer vacation, but as the academic year begins, we are very confident that many of them will use it on a much more regular basis. So second problem is device, which held back a little bit of engagement. And the third, as you rightly said, is the language, because the current profile of our courses is in English. However, we are coming up with the Hindi medium curriculum by the end of June. It is already in the process. That will actually benefit many more, family members of your merchants, because if we look at these 9 states, the traditional Hindi belt, Rajasthan, Haryana, Himachal, UP, Delhi NCR, Uttarakhand, UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh, more than 82% of the students go to the state board Hindi medium curriculum. So I think once we also launch our Hindi medium curriculum, then many more children in the Spice Money family will get benefited. From the user experience, it was very good. I think the excitement was very high, and those who used it, there are students who used it 30 days in a row.
And how does that compare, Vivek, with some of your other students in big cities?
No, big city usage is more. As I said, you must understand that device is a problem, right?
So basically, when you say, Vivek, when you talk about the device, is it a bigger screen?
No. It can be a 7-inch.
What's as a mobile phone?
No, it can be a 7-inch tablet. I mean, it's not like we are looking for sophisticated devices, but a device that is in the hand of a student. He is not dependent on the father or mother to give the device. So if you look at it, everyone is going in that direction. I mean, last week our Prime Minister also mentioned about hybrid learning. Now, without a device, hybrid learning cannot happen. Like if you look at Haryana, the Chief Minister and the government gave away 5 lakh tablets. 5 lakh tablets is it's a huge number, and every state is taking understanding the need of device. So um, it's not I mean to be frank, it is not something where I can play a role, or companies like us can play. It has to be solved by either the governments or the parent themselves. But what I'm trying to say, the difference is not because of the understanding level or the comfort with technology. The difference in rural and urban is largely because of the internet and the device.
So if I look at the three barriers to adoption that you mentioned, right, the connectivity issue, the device issue, and the language issue, I think fair to say that connectivity issue, Vivek, is getting solved faster than the others, right?
Yes,
Because
yes, yes,
by
true.
definition, today we have one of the lowest data tariffs in the world. Operators have gone out there and allowed consumers in rural India to also access internet, and we are seeing on our, many of our merchant families, using internet very actively. The very fact that we've grown as Spice Money has been, because of growth of internet, right? Because Spice
Absolutely.
as a platform delivering financial and digital services is all through an online web and app platform, right? Uh, so I think that problem, I would say, is would you agree, is more or less getting solved, right? The question of connectivity.
I agree.
This question of device, Vivek, you raise a very important point, and it comes down to who will ensure that there is a device in the hands of every child in a rural household, right? And is this going to be the job of the government, right? Because it has to be subsidized, or is there a role private sector can play in this? Do you see moves in this direction of how to make affordable devices available, or is it predominantly government led with all these schemes that the government comes out to distribute tablets?
So, partially yes, because if you are targeting a really, really weaker section of the societies, then this becomes a sizable amount. But if you look at the other perspective, everyone has mobile, right? So it is just realizing how a device can change the learning outcomes for a child living in rural area. Even just that realization is good enough, because purchasing a 6,000, 7,000 rupees device is not something for which anyone has to think too much. Of course, Spice Money or any other fintech companies can make them affordable in installments or in whichever way. Doesn't have to be always come from government subsidies, right? It is, see, some of these things are not like you have to build a house and you need lakhs of rupees. It's just 6,000-7,000 rupees. If I think that it is important, I'll get it. So
But how have you seen the product work on a mobile phone device, which is like a 3, 4, 5 inch versus a 7-inch tablet?
no, so 7-inch tablet, the experience is definitely better. 5-inch is also fine because the product is responsive for a mobile screen. But below 5-inch, it is not a great experience.
Understood. So maybe one solution, as you recommended, could be about companies, fintechs, right? Providing for kind of EMI-led schemes, and we know, for example, that people can afford to pay that over time, right? So that could be one driver of this. Just a couple more questions, Vivek, from my side, in terms of just growth of online education, right, in the country. And of course, we've seen 2 years of COVID, and like you said, everyone was forced into it, and it impacted kids overall. How do you see, what are the learnings coming out of it, right? You spoke about hybrid learning. As we come out of the pandemic, how do you see online, offline working together? And if you could really, because we are so deeply vested in rural ecosystem, just talk us through in terms of how you see a hybrid model of education working for rural India.
So I think the COVID has been obviously negative for everyone in the society, but for education, it has opened multiple opportunities. Online lecture is not something which I truly believe is a big enabler of learning. But for rural areas, it is better than not having the access to tutor. Okay, so some elements of online lecturing are good for rural areas as long as they are done in their language at their level rather than keeping it too sophisticated. But the online learning will go much beyond the lecturing component, and that's where I think everyone will get benefit. So there will be content plays, there will be a assessment plays, there will be a personalized learning play like SpeedLabs, and these plays will keep growing. And the reason for, if you even look at it, the national education policy or the focus from prime minister or everyone is towards the hybrid learning, is because now the consumption behavior change that has happened, whether we like it or not. Parents, teachers, and students, all of them are comfortable with technology to a large extent than they were before COVID. So post COVID is a new normal, and in the new normal, hybrid learning will be perfectly acceptable. Of course, we have to solve for the three things that I mentioned, but hybrid learning is here to stay, and it will empower the students in rural areas on a relative scale much more than the urban areas.
So, Vivek, if I can ask you, as Spice Money, we are focusing on increasing the reach of financial services deep into rural India. And, we're starting with our merchant families, but then there are also consumers of merchants and their families that we can serve. So we are, of course, looking forward to our partnership and what more we can do together. But if you could just share with us your vision for SpeedLabs, and, how do you see SpeedLabs contributing to educating kids across the country or even globally? So if you could share with our viewers and listeners about your vision.
Surely. So, as I mentioned, that the focus remains on personalized learning. Now, let me take a step back. If you tell a student that you have to study on a daily basis because your data will be captured and everyone will have a look at it, including your parents, okay, the sense of accountability that builds in the mind of a student is very different as compared to just waiting for the test marks to come after 3 months. Right. So it's first of all not just empowering the students, it is also making them accountable. So SpeedLabs vision is threefold. First is empower them with the right content. So right content is, you give me academic content which is at my level. Don't give me too high, don't give me too low, but give me at my level so that my confidence, my motivation level is good enough to continue working hard. That's number one. Second, indirectly make me accountable. So if my parents or my teacher have set a target for me, let's say, okay, you have to do 300 questions a week, and I will track it. And I can't fool you, because if I randomly do, my accuracy will dip and I will be caught. In a printed material, I could have easily said that, okay, I've done. Nobody has time to check, right? Here, everything is transparent, fair feedback. So you make me accountable. And third element is excitement. So because I know that if I do these two things, I'm going to go the next level. So there is an inherent excitement. Everyone wants to progress. Everyone wants to go to the next level. If I am a 60% score student, whether or not everyone believes, I want to go to 70%. That's the simple nature, right? Nature tells us to go forward. Nature never tells us to go backward. So if I am empowered, if I've been made accountable, there will be an excitement, and as a result, I will reach what I deserve. I'll perform even more than my potential. Sometimes it is also possible.
So how many students now using your platform for personalized learning, Vivek, to date?
So we have been giving the access to more than 1.5 lakh students across India. More than 300 cities, more than 5,000 teachers are empowering these students. And of course, COVID helped us because, as I mentioned, consumption behavior changed. Earlier, people were resistant. They had inertia to accept technology in education as much. And they always thought that it is online lecture and animated videos, etc. But the real learning is on the analytic side, on the right feedback, personalized content, etc. So I think we are growing fast now, and last 6-7 months have been exceptional for us because now the offline has started. So I always believed that the lecture component as much as possible should happen in offline engagement because it's a high touch experience-based process rather than transactional. And rest of the things like printed versus tech, that will be one by tech. So eventually, I think in next 5 years we will stop using printed material to a large extent.
Well, Vivek, it's such a pleasure talking to you. I think you're working in such an important space. Our experience at Spice Money with your firm has shown us that you clearly have what it takes to not only drive literacy across urban India but also across rural India. And we at Spice Money are going to work very closely with you to make sure that we do that. We also have some testimonials of some of the students of our merchant families, even wives of some of our merchants who've taken programs on yours. So it's not just kids, but also some women who've also taken programs on your platform. So it's a much broader area of content that you provide. We've got some testimonials, and I would like us to play some of those for the benefit of our listeners and viewers.
My name is Shashida and I am studying for class 9. मैं अपने फ्रेंड्स की मदद से मैं अपने स्पाइस मनी और SpeedLabs में ज्वाइन हुई हूँ और मुझे वहाँ पे पढ़ने में बहुत इम्प्रूवमेंट हुई है, इसलिए मैं आगे और पढ़ना चाहूँगी स्पाइस मनी और SpeedLabs। अभी मेरी एग्ज़ाम्स हुई, मैं उसमें सेकंड पोजीशन पे आई हूँ और मुझे पढ़ने में बहुत अच्छा सा लगा, इसलिए मैं स्पाइस मनी और SpeedLabs का थैंक यू करती हूँ कि उनकी मदद से आज मैं सेकंड पोजीशन पे आई हूँ एग्ज़ाम्स में। Thank you teachers. Spice Money and SpeedLabs is very good app.
हेलो मैम, मैं भूमिका कुंवर। मेरा भाई स्पाइस मनी के अधिकारी हैं। स्पाइस मनी की तरफ से मुझे SpeedLabs की आईडी मिली है, जिससे मुझे प्रैक्टिस करके पढ़ाई में बहुत अच्छा लगता है और यह SpeedLabs एक बहुत ही अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है। थैंक यू।
And so with that, Vivek, I really would like to thank you for taking our time to share with us, your journey at SpeedLabs. Truly inspiring, and looking forward to working very closely with you to really drive literacy deep into rural India. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. It was a delight speaking to you, and looking forward to a much more fruitful association with Spice Money and be a part of your bigger goal and bigger vision. I will be very happy to play any role that is possible for us.
I must, sorry, for the benefit of the viewers, also indicate that Vivek was very kind to make sure that the initial program that we've run on Spice Money for our merchant families has been pro bono, so there's been no charge. So thank you so much, Vivek, for that. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned it earlier. You're really doing good service, and it's been a privilege working closely with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.